Wait. I take it off, she said. The lone rancher froze after her in-laws took off all her clothes. Blood ran down her thigh, mixing with the dust. The summer heat in Dust Devil Creek was brutal, the kind that cracked the earth and cooked a man's thoughts. Clara May stumbled across the open plain barefoot, her clothes torn to shreds. Each step left a mark of pain behind her. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to keep moving. Her body was covered in bruises. Her breath came in broken gasps. The sun beat down on her shoulders, and the wind carried the sound of her fear. Somewhere far behind, she swore she could still hear laughter. That kind of laughter that follows you out of hell. When she reached the edge of the ranch, her knees gave out. She fell hard into the dirt. The world spun, blurred, then stopped at the sound of a man's boots. Jonah Croft stepped out from the shadow of his barn. 56 years old, beard grey at the chin, eyes sharp as a hawk, a man carved out of the land itself. He hadn't spoken to a soul in weeks. But what he saw lying in front of him stopped his breath cold. The girl was a wreck. Dust clung to her skin. Her hair stuck to her face. Tears had carved lines through the grime. Her voice cracked when she tried to speak. "Please," she whispered. Then her hands trembled as she clutched what was left of her torn clothes. I need to take it off. Please help me." Jonah froze. He had seen wounded men, dying horses, even friends shot dead right in front of him. But this was something else. This was what a broken soul looked like. He said nothing for a moment. Then his voice came low and steady. "Come inside." Clara May staggered to her feet and followed him into the small cabin. It smelled of coffee, tobacco, and old wood. Jonah poured water into a basin, grabbed a clean rag and a bottle of whiskey. The room filled with the sharp scent of alcohol and blood. He cleaned her wounds, careful and slow. The girl didn't cry. She only bit her lip and stared at the floor, silent, shaking. When he asked her name, she whispered it. Jonah nodded, saying nothing. He had questions, but he could tell the answers would hurt to hear. Outside, the wind picked up, moaning through the fence line. Inside, only the ticking of a clock broke the silence. He looked at her again. She reminded him of someone. His sister Abigail. She was 16 when raiders came through the valley. He'd been away that night buying cattle. By the time he came back, she was gone. That guilt had lived in him ever since. Now, staring at this broken girl in front of him, Jonah felt something old wake up. The same anger, the same helplessness. But this time, he wasn't going to walk away. "Drink this," he said, handing her the glass. Clara May took it, her fingers trembling. She looked up, eyes red but steady. "Are you going to send me away?" Jonah didn't answer right away. He looked out the window at the land stretched endless under the sun, then back at her. "No. You're safe here." The words hung heavy in the hot air. For the first time in years, Jonah Croft felt the storm building again in his chest. He didn't know who had done this to her, but he knew one thing for sure. If the devil had a face in Dust Devil Creek, Jonah planned to meet it head-on. And the question that burned in his mind was simple: could a man who'd lost everything once save someone this time, before it was too late? The sun was setting when Jonah stepped out on the porch. The sky burned orange, the color of old wounds. Inside, Clara May was sleeping, her body finally giving up to exhaustion. He watched the horizon quiet, the way a man watches a storm rolling in. For years, Jonah had chosen silence. No visitors, no friends, no damn trouble. But tonight, trouble had walked right through his door and bled on his floor. And for some reason, it felt like it belonged there. He went back inside. Clara May stirred when she heard the floorboards creak. Her voice was soft, still raspy. "I didn't mean to cause you no harm." Jonah shook his head. "You didn't." He sat down across from her, poured 2 cups of coffee, and slid one her way. Steam curled between them like a fragile peace treaty. "Who did this to you?" She hesitated, her fingers wrapped tight around the cup, knuckles white. My husband's brothers. The Hollisters. Her eyes dropped to the floor. They said the land my will left me was theirs by right. That a woman couldn't hold it. But he's been gone near a month. The fever took him. They came anyway. Jonah's jaw tightened. He had seen their kind before. Men who thought bloodline made them untouchable. Men who believed pain was theirs to hand out. He leaned back, took a long breath. Those boys ever pay for what they do? Clara May gave a bitter laugh. In this town, they don't pay for nothing. Their father owns half of it. Jonah looked at the fire, the light flickering against his face. Something hard settled in his chest again. He remembered the raiders. He remembered Abigail. And he remembered doing nothing. That was the part that still burned. He stood up slow and steady, like a man making peace with a bad decision. You can stay here for now. Clara May's eyes widened. You're not afraid they'll come? Jonah looked toward the door. They can come if they want. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of something unspoken. Maybe hope. Maybe just anger, wearing a different face. Clara May set her cup down and met his eyes. I don't want to hide forever. Jonah nodded. You won't. He turned to hang his rifle back on the wall, but his hands hesitated. Then he changed his mind and set it on the table instead. The old iron looked right at home there, waiting. Outside, coyotes howled somewhere deep in the valley. Inside, Jonah Croft felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Purpose. He knew this wasn't just about one girl anymore. Dust Devil Creek had been rotten for a long time, and someone had to clean it up. He blew out the lantern, leaving only the glow from the dying fire. And in that quiet room with a wounded girl and a loaded rifle, he whispered to himself, if they come for her, they'll have to go through me first. But what Jonah didn't know was that the riders were already on their way. The sound came slow at first, hoofbeats, faint, steady, growing closer. Jonah knew that sound. He had heard it too many times before, back when trouble wore spurs and smiles. He stepped to the window and looked out across the open plain. Dust was rising. 6 riders moving straight toward the house. He didn't need to count twice. 3 of them were the Hollister brothers. The other 3 were hired guns. Clara May came down from the small sleeping loft, her hair loose, eyes wide. They found me, her voice cracked, barely more than a breath. Jonah nodded once, calm but cold. Back up in that loft. Don't make a sound. She hesitated. Jonah, please don't do something stupid. He gave a half smile. Too late for that. When she disappeared into the loft, Jonah checked the rifle. It still smelled of oil and old battles. He walked out onto the porch, sun cutting sharp across his face. The riders slowed to a halt about 20 feet away. Their leader, Marcus Hollister, the oldest brother, gave a fake smile. Afternoon, Mr. Croft. We're looking for our sister-in-law. Goes by Clara May. Seems she wandered off, not quite in her right mind since my brother passed. Jonah leaned against the post, rifle in hand, but low. Haven't seen no lady. Marcus grinned, a cruel twist of his lips. She's confused. Thinks my brother's land belongs to her. We're just trying to bring her home, get her the help she needs. Jonah let out a dry chuckle. Funny. She didn't seem confused to me. Seemed like she was running from something that scared her half to death. That wiped the smile clean off Marcus's face. The sheriff, who rode with them, spat in the dust. Mind if we look around? Jonah straightened, his shadow stretching long across the dirt. You got a warrant? The sheriff's jaw tightened. Don't need one if you got nothing to hide. Jonah looked down at his boots and then back up, steady. Funny thing about the law out here. A man's land is his castle. An uninvited guest. Well, they ain't welcome for a second. No one moved. Wind carried the smell of sweat and gunpowder waiting to happen. Then Marcus tugged the reins, turned his horse around. We'll be back, Old Man Jonah nodded slowly. I'll be right here. When the dust settled, he went back inside. Clara May was sitting on the edge of the bed, tears in her eyes. They're trying to say I'm crazy. My Will was the most honest man in Dust Devil Creek. He made sure that land was mine. Jonah sat down across from her, voice soft. They're scared. Scared of losing the power their name bought them. But fear makes men stupid, and stupid men make mistakes. He poured her a glass of water. Outside, thunder rolled far in the distance. It wasn't rain. It was the sound of war coming to Dust Devil Creek. The storm finally broke that night. Wind howled through the valley, carrying the smell of rain and gun oil. Clara May couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching lightning split the sky. Every flash lit the fear on her face. Jonah was still awake, too. He sat by the fire, cleaning his rifle again in the same way some men say their prayers. When she came down the stairs, he didn't look up. Can't sleep, she shook her head. Been thinking. He poured her some coffee. It was bitter, strong, and too late in the night for it, but it gave them something to hold on to. They'll come back, Jonah. You know that, he nodded. Yeah, I know. Clara May leaned forward. What if we didn't wait? What if we went to them? That made him look up. To them? She took a breath. The deed to the land. Every detail, every boundary, Will's signature, the county seal, it's all filed in the records office in town. If we can get that paper, we can end this. Jonah's brow furrowed. You're talking about breaking into the county office. That's a hanging offense. So is what they did to me. Her words were quiet, but sharp enough to cut the silence. Jonah looked into her eyes. They weren't just scared anymore. They were determined. He leaned back, thinking. Old Man Hemlock, who runs the office, is too cheap to fix that back window. Always said, no one's dumb enough to crawl through broken glass. Clara May smiled for the first time in days. Guess he never met us. By midnight, they were in town. The rain had turned the dirt streets into rivers of mud. The records office stood dark and silent, just like every secret it kept. They moved like shadows. Jonah went first, clearing the way, his boots sinking without sound. Clara May found the broken window. Her hand shook as she pulled herself through, but she didn't stop. Inside, the air was thick and stale with the scent of old paper. Jonah followed close behind, lantern in hand. They didn't talk. Didn't need to. She headed straight for the file drawers. Her fingers moved fast, sure, like someone who had spent too many nights organizing her husband's business ledgers. Here, she whispered. Jonah brought the light closer. There it was, in a thick ledger book, the official record of the land transfer, the Hollister name crossed out and hers written in, sealed and signed by a circuit judge. Proof. This wasn't just a claim, it was the law. This ain't just greed, Jonah, she muttered. This is outright theft. Clara May began carefully copying the entry onto a spare sheet of paper, her writing fast but clean. Outside, thunder rumbled again, closer this time. When they were almost done, Jonah froze. Boot steps. Slow, heavy, coming from the front door. He blew out the lantern, grabbed her hand. Voices echoed from the lobby. Check the back. I saw a light. Jonah's heart pounded. He pressed a finger to his lips. Clara May nodded, clutching the papers to her chest. Through the darkness, he could make out the sheriff's voice. Well, what do we got here? Jonah tightened his grip on the rifle. He knew there'd be no talking their way out of this time, and the next 5 seconds would decide whether they'd live long enough to see the sunrise. The first light came slow over Dust Devil Creek. Smoke still rose from what used to be the county records office. The fire from the night before had burned through the roof, leaving only black bones in silence. It took days for the smoke to clear and even longer for the truth to reach the territorial capital. But when it did, the law came riding fast, like thunder rolling down the plains. Jonah and Clara May stood on the hill above town, watching the lawmen ride in. This time, they weren't the local sheriff's men. These were federal marshals. By noon, half the town's elite were in chains, the Hollister brothers, the sheriff, every man tied to that rotten tree of corruption. When the noise settled, Jonah looked at Clara May. Her face was calm, almost peaceful. She had been through hell, but somehow she had come out stronger. "Your husband would have been proud," he said. She nodded, eyes glistening in the morning sun. A few weeks later, Clara May stood in front of the small mercantile that had once belonged to her husband's family, the very property at the heart of the dispute. The government had returned it to her, clear and free. Along with more than she ever expected. Jonah came by, hat in hand. "You could rebuild this place. Make it bigger than before." Clara May smiled. "I could. Or maybe I could use it to help others who lost everything, too," he smiled back, a quiet kind of proud, the kind that doesn't need words. And as they stood there, a warm summer wind swept through the street, carrying the dust of a new beginning. People in Dust Devil Creek still talk about that night. Some say it was justice. Others call it fate. But the truth is simpler. It was a choice. A choice made by two people who refused to stay silent. Because sometimes it only takes one person brave enough to stand up for others to find their voice. And sometimes, that one act of courage can change the whole damn town.